So I want to welcome all of you to this webinar today. We will be discussing a very important topic. My name is Mugambi Mwirigi, and I'm the Commissioner in charge of the Kenya School of Revenue Administration. And the Kenya School of Revenue Administration is a training or the training school of the Kenya Revenue Authority. Of course, we are also one of the four World Customs Organization training schools covering East and Southern Africa. We are also the regional partner for the African Tax Administration Forum, ATAF, as far as tax training is concerned. And we also host the African Academy in partnership with the OECD for tax and financial crimes investigations. Of course, our mandate goes beyond teaching, and our mandate spreads to, disseminating tax and customs knowledge, not just within the tax administration space, but across industry and across Africa. And therefore, that then becomes the basis for this particular webinar that we are having. Today, we are tackling a very important topic, and the topic that we'll be tackling is tax technology revolution, navigating a technology-powered revenue collection system through artificial intelligence and blockchain technology. As we are all aware, this is where the world is heading, and we have a lot of developments that have happened in the space of artificial intelligence, in the space of blockchain, and of course, African tax administrations are catching up and trying to ensure that technology is part and parcel of their revenue collection processes. So I'll just give a quick background on this particular topic, and then I will be able to introduce the panelists that we have today. But before I do that, I want to really thank everybody who is attending this particular webinar. We have people from many countries, from industry, from tax administrations, from different audit firms, from law firms, and from non-governmental entities that have an interest in this particular topic. And so now straight on to the conversation for today. We know that revenue authorities across Africa face a lot of challenges as far as optimizing revenue collection and expanding the tax base is concerned. And the continent's diverse economies, coupled with a growing informal sector and the rise of the digital economy, are having a lot of challenges mainstreaming technology to help them to collect and mobilize taxes within their countries. Now, technology has been transforming rapidly, and as you know, a lot of tax administrations, of course, being government entities, become a bit heavy as far as their speed of adaptation and adoption is concerned. Now, this particular economic dialogue, which is our 9th edition, narrows its focus to artificial intelligence and blockchain technology, where, of course, we know that artificial intelligence is the replication of human intelligence in machines, allowing them to do activities that normally would require human intelligence. Of course, we have seen the developments within that particular space to a level where artificial intelligence, of course, is, and these are some of the things that we're going to be discussing, is basically, moving ahead of human intelligence in very, very many regards. And therefore, the utilization of artificial intelligence to increase tax compliance in Africa can be achieved in many ways, but all those ways must have technology at their center. And there is a new buzzword in town, and this buzzword is TaxTech. TaxTech. And we'll be delving into this particular buzzword and wondering what exactly its meaning is. I want to read an excerpt from a document by the OECD, which is a discussion paper titled The Digital Transformation of Tax Administration. And this is a 2020 paper. The digitalization of society is moving at an increasingly rapid pace. And this offers opportunities as well as challenges to all parts of society, including tax administration. These changes provide an opportunity to address some of the structural limitations of the current systems of tax administration, moving away from sequential taxpayer-facing processes and beginning to integrate taxation processes into the systems used by taxpayers as part of their daily lives and businesses. Now, I want to shift gears a bit and introduce my distinguished panel. This is a panel that for sure will be able to prosecute this case of technology as far as tax mobilization is concerned. These are people who have vast experiences in different areas. And from Belgium, Brussels in Belgium, we have His Excellency Ambassador Bitange Ndemo. And Ambassador Bitange Ndemo is a global technocrat and currently serving as Kenya's ambassador to the Kingdom of Belgium and the EU. Previously, Professor Ndemo served as a permanent secretary then. We call them principal secretaries now in Kenya, in the Ministry of ICT. He is a professor of entrepreneurship of the University of Nairobi School of Business. He's also an advocate of development strategies leveraging emergent technologies and social enterprise in Africa. Ambassador Ndemo has sat on many boards, huge tech companies. He has been an advisor to 3 UN agencies and a myriad of other non-governmental institutions. His skills and capabilities are varied. And of course, I mentioned that he has been a permanent secretary in the government of Kenya. He has been in policy development for a very long time. He has over 30 years of business, finance, and technology expertise gained from his years in government, in higher education, and in the private sector. The ambassador Ndemo is also an author, and he is widely published in both entrepreneurship and technology in many journals, and he has participated in numerous columns and in numerous media as a commentator. And of course, he has participated in numerous, webinars and given lectures all across the world. And as you can see, I'm struggling to actually summarize Ambassador Ndemo's profile. You can go to the internet, and all that you need to do is check out his name, and you'll see what else he has done. And so, Your Excellency, we are glad to have you on this podcast, on this webinar once again. I now want to go down south, and from Johannesburg, we are joined by Dorothy Kangoro. Dorothy is the only lady in the webinar today. And Dorothy is the founder and managing director of AfriLaw in Johannesburg, and also Johannesburg. And she's also a tax manager in a company called Mukuru in Johannesburg. Am I right, Dorothy? Fantastic. Yes. So Dorothy is a highly experienced specialist in corporate and international tax, boasting over 20 years of experience in the field. She holds a master's degree in international tax law and she has worked for top firms including KPMG, Arthur Anderson, and Deloitte in the early stages of her career. She went on to manage the regional tax units of multinationals such as Seacom and Anglo Gold Ashanti. And I think, Dorothy, your interest and Ambassador Bitangendemo's interest converge at Seacom. Dorothy founded a specialized boutique firm that offers customized international tax and legal advisory services throughout Africa and other emerging markets. Dorothy currently holds the position of head of tax, like I just mentioned, at Mukuru, which is an award-winning fintech company that provides affordable and trustworthy financial services to emerging consumers. It is also one of the largest money transfer providers in Africa and a leading next-generation financial services platform. With years of experience in the fintech and telecommunications industries, Dorothy has gained valuable insights into the evolving technologies that drive the gig economy and associated global technology-driven platforms. In 2020 and 2021, Dorothy had the privilege of collaborating with the African Tax Administration Forum, ATAF, and contributing to their taxpayer education, integrity, and advisory initiatives. These initiatives focused on how digitalization could assist tax administrators in enhancing the delivery of taxpayer services, and ultimately domestic resource mobilization. And more recently, Dorothy co-authored a research paper for the Institute of Development Studies at the University of Sussex that explores leveraging digital financial services to improve Togo's tax administration. And so, Dorothy, we are really excited to have you here with us today.
Thank you very much, Commissioner.
Great. Let me now go west, and joining us from Abuja, Nigeria, we have Mr. Adedeji Awonibi, and Mr. Adedeji, and in short, we will be calling him Deji, is the co-founder of a company called Convexity in Nigeria. Adedeji is a forensic investigation practitioner and a certified blockchain and cryptocurrency forensic investigator with various international certifications. He has more than 15 years experience in this area across banks within the Nigeria financial sector. He's an educator in corporate workplace settings, and he's uniquely qualified and involved in forensic analysis of financial infractions, cryptocurrency crimes, and designing plans that work for government in these areas as far as law enforcement and regulation is concerned. Deji was appointed in Nigeria as a member of as a member virtual asset and fintech regulatory framework. Deji will tell us later on what this is, and of course, in the fintech regulatory framework drafting committee by the by the Nigerian authority. He's a member of the Global Digital Finance Working Group, which is in France, and a member of the industry-led think tank that worked on and came out with the FATF cryptocurrency travel rule intermessaging standard for virtual assets. Again, Deji, you'll be telling us what that means. It's quite a mouthful. His law enforcement training efforts on new money and cybercrime have seen him train many law enforcement agents in various countries, including Nigeria, where he handled the Nigeria Police, Nigeria Army Cyber Warfare Command, Zambia Financial Intelligence Unit, Zambia Central Bank, and many more. And of course, he's heavily involved in various technologies that touch on blockchain intelligence and investigative technologies, among others. And so, Deji, welcome. We are very happy to have you with us this afternoon. And so, allow me to go straight into the conversation that we are having today. And I want to start with you, Ambassador Demo. Maybe you could just greet us in 2 or 3 minutes and tell us how you're doing.
Thank you, Daktari, for the opportunity to speak about technology, emerging technologies. I'm doing well here, doing a lot of work, not just diplomacy, but also speaking a lot around the same space here, because you are going to see a lot of these technologies used. If you use them ethically, you can use them in diplomacy, and they can cause problems which will need diplomats to solve. So we have been addressing this quite a bit. I'm very happy that at home we are adopting this new tech. I am a user, and I'm happy that KRA has been able to implement such things like e-Teams, only that you have not applied AI to help as you register and deregister and re-register. You need some chatbot to help the customer. So you have brought it at the right time when we can complain and you improve the services. Technology helps facilitate efficiency. And in broader terms, it enables greater productivity. And with greater productivity, it means that the economy then would grow. A lot of research now is centered around how technology is going to help Africa to structurally change. You see, from independence, we've been trying to move out of the farmlands into other things. And I like the fact that you brought the SMEs, because that is the backbone of the economy where we are in Africa at the moment. The more efficient we make those SMEs, the better the economy becomes, the better we account for every cent in the economy. And you would see most of our economies beginning to grow because we are facilitating the growth through use of technology. So I'm looking forward to discuss in detail how we can help our people, our government, to be able to raise more money and bring better services to citizens. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, and we are always happy to have you in our conversations. Dorothy, shifting gears to you now, how are you doing in Johannesburg, and how is the tech space looking like there?
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you for inviting me to be a panelist at this session. Do let me know if you can hear me okay. Okay, thank you. So Johannesburg is doing very well. It's cold. We have, like all African nations, we have our challenges. And obviously domestic revenue mobilization is critical because the needs and the wants of the citizens are numerous. So I am doing well. And just by background, I think my interest to be a member of this panelist is both from the taxpayer perspective, who has had the privilege of experiencing the development of African tax administration over the years. As you heard, I am seasoned. Some of us, if I was to be honest, I'd say I'm old, but let's just not go there. So we have, as taxpayers, we've experienced what the African tax administrators have gone through. We've seen the digitalization aspect, digital transformation of tax authorities. Some are still nascent, and I had the privilege of doing a research paper on OTR, the Togo's authorities' policies, and their development there. So you see a nascent tax authority that is leveraging on digital transformation, and I'd be happy to share that experience with the team. Then you have tax authorities like SARS, South Africa Revenue Services, that have actually implemented artificial intelligence and machine learning. And as a head of tax for multinationals, I must admit, our work has become easier simply because of the digital transformation across the continent. I believe when I first started out, it was paper-driven. Discussions you needed to get on a plane, go and meet the revenue authority. Now, they meet you on Teams. I have chatbots in some entities where the tax function can simply ask a question, and we now only refer to professionals when we have tax technical questions, or sadly, the system is unable to deal with us for whatever reason. We're still developing on the continent, so you have those regions, they're rolling out their digital transformation initiatives. Others are up the chain, in the value chain, and they're now looking at generative AI, implementing generative AI. So I'm looking forward to this discussion and happy to be here. Thank you.
Welcome, Dorothy, and thank you for accepting our invitation. Let us now go to Mr. Adedeji Owonibi. Deji, you're coming to us from Abuja. You are a forensic investigator, and you have not just interests, but training and experience in blockchain, cryptocurrency, and all these emerging technologies. So how are you doing in Abuja, and how is that space looking like, especially in West Africa?
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you very much. We're doing well. I think the weather is generally beautiful. Not in snow or anything. It's normal African beautiful weather. So, like you said, my interest has been within the blockchain ecosystem, and to also see how we can help authorities, policymakers to actually be able to drive policies around, things that can support how they can generate more revenue, which is of interest to most of the revenue agencies. Last week, for example, if you look at the digital asset cryptocurrency adoption, you see that Nigeria chart is very long, followed obviously by South Africa and Kenya, and then Kenya displays South Africa in another year, but we are just the three on the long chart most of the time. So, apart from just the statistic, the government felt if something is happening, because again, like last year, Nigeria did about $60 billion US crypto flow into the country. And that is not within the purview of the crypto authority, for example. I mean, the tax authority to be able to tax that. And this year, I did a presentation to them last week to the Enforcement and Investigation Department. And this year, so far, we've been able to see over 46.03 billion, on-chain transactions coming into those countries. And I think it's an area. And when I was contacted to say I'm going to be here, I said this is something that has to be on the foreplate of African revenue houses to know that, look, there's something we need to tap. And I'm glad when I heard you cooperate with EOCD. There's this crypto asset reporting framework that we're also looking at and educating different tax authorities to begin to look at those things. So it's been education across law enforcement. That's what I've been busy doing. Just before this, I was taking the Interpol Nigeria on, of course, how to investigate this whole crime. And the revenue people, I'm talking to them on how they can actually tax this new money and to be able to generate some revenue. For the chartered accountants, I'm telling them on how to account for this new money because it's a different facet to it. So it got across different places. For the central bank, for example, that I train every year, we're telling them on how this have impact on the macroeconomic stability of the country and what they can do and all that. So we've been doing more of training, and that's why I'm glad to be part of this, because it's great one. I've been contributing to the International Training Institute of the Central Bank. And when I heard it's KESRA, I say, okay, this is great, and we can educate ourselves more. So thank you very much, Doctor, from my end.
Thank you, Deji. And let's keep with that conversation. So a lot of African tax administrations are, I would carefully use the word, struggling to obtain view of transactions that are happening within the tech space, and very specifically on cryptocurrency. If you were to advise African tax administrations, and if you were to just give them a pointer as to where to start, where should that be?
So I would say training, doctor. I would say training. You know, so you only tax what you know, right? You tax what you understand, and so you have to know how it works. What I can tell you, doctor, the biggest problem has nothing to do with data. I just read out some data to you. So again, I'm partner to Chain Analysis, and Chain Analysis is a crypto intelligence and data company globally. And I'm the African investigative partner. So we do what we call Global Cryptocurrency Adoption Report every year. And so we have data points of what is happening in different countries. I take, for example, when I had the training with the tax authority in Nigeria some weeks back, I showed them how much we did. So last year I saw income from cryptocurrency taxation, transaction of about 520 billion income. And last year, 2022, and 2023, I showed them about 550 billion that we saw. And I showed now, like this same year, on that same trail, I can see here that South Africa is doing about 150 billion, 50 million revenue income generated. So these are all on-chain transactions. And that's the beauty of the blockchain itself, because all the data is there. And we can tell you that this is coming from Kenya, this is coming from South Africa, this is coming from every other country, and what is it meant to do? As a matter of fact, we went further to show them, for example, I said, can we get just a sample of 10 wallets within your country, and how much is the income that can be generated from those wallets? And we were able to show that. And of course, again, you have to be able to pull out statements, regulation, policies that speaks to how you can tax it. So I think it's more of education, more of groundwork, more policy drafting. But I think it has less to do with data, because again, it's blockchain and data can easily. And again, just to add, these data are gotten by different tools. So there are different tools in the market today, intelligent tool, investigation tool to be able to follow through. There's something I must say that we're also trying to help out based on our experience in the field. We're building this technology we call chain keeping. And chain keeping is just another name for bookkeeping, but this time just doing cryptocurrency taxation and accounting to be able to help tax regulators, the chartered accountant to attend to their customers, and all those things in the whole place. So those are the kind of innovation that I think we want to see in different jurisdictions, but it has to do with less of data, but more of education, and doctor.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, Professor Bitange Ndemo, I know you have a deep interest in blockchain technology. In what ways do you think we can start leveraging on blockchain technologies, not just for revenue mobilization, but generally for economic development? You're muted, Professor.
Shows you I'm getting older. I was going to address this because it's very key in the sense that we've been doing a lot of economic diplomacy here, talking to different people. Recently, I was writing a paper on blockchain, and we are looking at small and medium enterprises. And what I've seen, if you see, for example, Twigger Foods, one of its value proposition is that they are able to leverage blockchain to streamline supply chain. So if the Tax Revenue Authority understands how the entire value chain works, you would be able to tax at every level. And this is important because both the producers and government benefits from the level of transparency that you would see in building value chains, like in the agricultural sector. if you can shift that to another area, what you see in Europe now, they are looking at value chains. You know, how does this one work to get to this, to get to that? Then you don't have quarrels with your customers that you are taxing what is not, what should not be taxed. Now, if we continue to do that, what we are doing effectively is that we are structurally changing the economy from what the chaos of micro, small enterprises to actually putting them into the space where you are able to see them. And when you see them, you improve the understanding of the economy. If you look at the Nigerian or Kenyan economy, we reach somewhere and they say, now we're bigger than this. So we go again to look at the bottom to be able to understand the true, what the economy produces. So by us beginning to showcase that, we create a very productive economy. We collect all the taxes. We minimize borrowing from external sources, meaning then that we don't have to be, our forex is not disrupted because you borrowed and you need to repay. So it has a knock-on effect once you streamline the economy, because you understand how to trace everything from the beginning to the end. You understand the tax points and you collect every tax point. You enable the entrepreneurs to be visible to banks, and then they can be lent money to grow. So that impacts the economy and grows the economy even further than what government. You realize that it is blockchain AI that has brought small enterprise. These are the people the banks never used to look at because banks did not have data about them. Now you can have that data, and that data would assist in funding them and also enabling them to scale. And the scalability means that you are adding more to economic expansion.
And so, Your Excellency, in this particular webinar, we have a number of commissioners from different countries, including our very own Commissioner for Domestic Taxes, Rispa Simiyu, and our Commissioner for Customs, Lilian Nyawanda, and many other commissioners from different tax and customs administrations. Is it possible that you can give us a specific example, especially in the area of customs, where using blockchain technology, we can do track and tracing and therefore identify specific points at which during the value chain, both from the customs side and from the domestic taxes side, that then we can, identify those and, obtain taxes.
Actually, the shippers are now using blockchain to understand where the ship is, where they can tell you what is happening. I think you need to get into that value chain also to understand which sources, where did you buy from? I know one solution which we were being shown here, that after some time, they will know who are the honest shippers, meaning that they give the correct value of whatever that they are shipping. And because it is in the bill of lading and everything, which usually arrives ahead of time, because of blockchain, they are able to know where it is. And because of that, you have no doubt, you would have no reason to doubt that what is in this wood, the goods that are being shipped are worth this value. And this is how much that we can be able to tax. Because of traceability, and because you have those codes of what is being shipped, you can send even an inexperienced person to actually approach Mugambi and say, this is the actual tax that you are supposed to be paying. And because this is the shipper, they don't have to bother with you, because if the shippers are honest, it helps you to reduce the cumbersome work of dismantling things to be able to understand the correct value of what has been shipped. So blockchain and traceability, they are one and the same thing. And I think Adesi will tell us that it is being used for traceability. Right now, we're in the process with the EU. They're trying to trace coffee from the farmer to the end user, meaning that what you state as the quality of the product, it is what you have there, and then you are able to, those who do better or provide quality would be paid for their quality, especially things like organic foods. They are able now to leverage AI, leverage blockchain to be able to pay those. I know at home there sometimes someone can tell you this is organic, you have no way of showing. I know a lot of young people are doing machine learning to see how to look at what is the farmer declares. If it is organic, it will be organic, and the pricing will be different from the one that is not organic. So we are going to introduce, with technology, you introduce some level of honesty, truth, and then you would be able to resolve some of the problems we've had. And the result is that the economy becomes more efficient, more productive, more money, and the growth. And for the other taxes, we need to use the carrot and the cake to be able to get like the micro and the small enterprises. You recall in Kenya, for example, we introduced the tax for micro enterprises and removed it. If I can criticize you a little, is that we should have actually left it until they become dependent on that space before you taxed. But you moved very fast because they were visible, you began to tax them. Now they don't take money using M-Pesa because M-Pesa had some level of, am I supposed to say that, or you would fight me after this?
Proceed, Professor.
Yes, yes. When you started taxing SMEs, is because they became visible. They have never been visible when you use cash. And the cash is what has put us behind, in the sense that we are not able to collect the tax even where you can see that you can tax. We need to use the carrot and cake, meaning that you let them use, they become dependent, because once they are dependent and they understand the benefit, then you bring in tax. We need to have visibility in the micro, small, and medium enterprises. It benefits the economy. And you can't just walk in and say, this is the kind of taxes that you are going to pay. There are several applications that I know that would help them to calculate their profits and how much revenue and stuff, meaning there are small enterprises that are automating micro, small, and medium enterprises. You need to work with those groups because they give you greater visibility of an area that has been the darkest in our economy. And with that, we can be able to tax everybody.
Thank you, Excellency. We'll be coming back to that. Let me now go to Dorothy, again, joining us from Johannesburg. Dorothy, you've been working with a number of tax administrations, and you indicated that SARS, for example, are already actively applying artificial intelligence and was it blockchain technology? Maybe you could tell us a little more about that.
So from SARS have been actively using artificial intelligence and machine learning. I think they're now moving on to, and Deji could probably go into this because I sense you're a techie. generative AI, which is the next phase of AI. So they have indicated that because consistently they've started exceeding their targets despite the challenging economic environment, they attribute this to machine learning. The difference is that in South Africa, they have been able to link, and which is the most important thing of getting the benefits of artificial intelligence and machine learning and generative and even blockchain, which is the next phase. They have been able to connect the ecosystem much more than many other African countries. So you have your company's registry, you have your vehicles registry, you have your ports, your customs, you have other agencies, Home Affairs, which is where you issue your IDs and your passports. So, and right now, much like I think I saw that back home in Kenya, where one doesn't even need a national ID. You simply just go into a bank, your thumbprint to national digitization of all aspects. So they have one source of truth in terms of what the taxpayer is doing. And because of that, their machine learning and AI is able to match expenditure, returns, the self-assessment, and they're able to determine and identify possible tax risk for fraud, for tax fraud, which is the aim is to capture a lot more people into the tax space for SARS, but more importantly, they wanted to be able to pinpoint their areas of risk, specifically with illicit financial flows. They had quite a few issues with illegal tobacco trading, which boomed during the COVID era. So SARS have indicated that to their mind, this has been AI and machine learning has helped them achieve the gains they have, and they have been able to collect more revenue because of that. They also say that they have been able to increase the number of taxpayers in their tax base. So they're very clear that because they have been able to detect and ask and indicate to people perhaps who are not registered that you need to register for tax, and this is how simple it is. If you have to register a new company in South Africa, and I think Kenya has the same, it immediately issues you with a tax reference number, meaning you're captured in the system. And you get requests to comply continuously with your tax obligations. So I do think it's, from what I can see and from what we're seeing the tax authority SARS reporting, once they can implement technologies such as blockchain, then I think, and they can capture the entire ecosystem, then I think all one could see is improvements. But there are challenges because of the unbanked, so to speak. South Africa still has quite a few unbanked individuals. And unlike in countries such as Kenya and Nigeria, where the informal sector does have access to mobile money and mobile digital financial instruments that they can use on their cell phones, South Africa is still to roll out this with as much success as we've seen in East Africa and in West Africa.
But I believe data sharing then becomes a very important component of that. And how is that working within the South African system, especially when it comes to interlinkages between the tax administration and various other entities?
So I think the first challenge they had with data sharing was how to share this data without breaching the legal aspects. I think, Ambassador, you touched on this. How do you roll out these technologies ethically? So South Africa has done what they need to do from a legal perspective. They have very stringent data protection rules. when sharing between the various agencies, they have made sure that that data sharing is within the ambit of the Constitution of South Africa, and they have very strong proponents of ensuring constitutionality in these spheres. So the linkages between the various entities have been managed because they had proper policies within the government. And the project was managed specifically at a policy section, policy level, which meant that all relevant stakeholders were involved. So not just government, also the private sector, the non-profit organizations were involved and were engaged. And without managing this stakeholder engagement and having an intergovernmental intervention project, it would not have been possible to achieve these linkages. But you can still see they have legacy issues. So for example, the Ministry of Mines, Minerals and Energy, they'd like to roll out what they call a KESRA, but they face certain, and because South Africa is rich in extractive resources, getting those linkages with such sectors and the informal mining sector would be essential, but they have challenges. And that again comes from the fact that they have stakeholders who see this rather a threat than an opportunity for them. So there's still some way to go. And I think the panelists will agree is that if you're going to have these linkages around the ecosystem, then there's a lot of stakeholder engagement that has to go into it.
And also perhaps policy calibration and so on and so forth.
Policy calibration is important, and it has to be long-term. So this, while we sometimes think when KRA or SAR says this is a 5-year policy plan, and engaging with all of them, making sure that policy speaks to everything, it is important. You're quite right. And you see it in the smaller, like in Togo, that policy calibration is the whole reason they were able in such a small country to roll out their digital tax, they call it e-tax, much like what all the other countries have, iTax, wherever you are. It was because it was driven largely by, and they have the unique ministry that they call the Digital Transformation Ministry, which I found insightful, which then brings everyone together, all stakeholders together, professionals and everything. And they were able to identify what are the hurdles what policies do we need to implement? What are the bottlenecks? Our ICT network, what do we need to do? What kind of infrastructure is lacking? So it is very essential, and those who've done it deliver the end result comes to them much faster, the benefits, as opposed to having to continuously restructure and reassess your policies.
Fantastic. So, Professor, you were saying something?
Yes,
yes.
there is. I think my sister is a lawyer. There is something I think they call probable cause. Yeah. If I buy a Lamborghini, of course you would see that I've paid huge taxes, the tax to the vehicle, but you also have my personal taxes, which probably I have paid the minimum. There is probable cause that I have other sources of income that you can very easily follow. Get permission from the data protection office to be able, because you have probable cause, you have several touch points. The tax authority has several touch points where they will be able to know that Ndemo earns more than what is declaring. Meaning you need to have a very good system of AI to be able to tell you that there is a mismatch between the revenue and the expenditure. If I paid, say, total $1 million, and then you hear that I've bought a jet of 10 billion, then there is probable cause, and you should be able to see that in your systems if you had a very good AI system.
And so just to give a quick story in 10 seconds, we once invited Professor Bitang Ndemo to give a presentation at KRA, and he came in driving a VW Beetle. I think he was trying to make sure that we don't identify probable cause.
That has been my car. It's my car. So I wasn't trying to show you that I own more than you would have seen from my bike.
Okay, let's go to Deji in Nigeria. Thank you, Prof. and Dorothy. Deji, let's get a little technical here. Revenue administrations, whether customs or tax, hold huge amounts of data. We have huge data lakes. And there is a lot of meaning that you can draw from that, from those data lakes, to talk to what Professor and Dorothy have just mentioned. If I was to ask you, to give us, to kind of take us through the initial steps of integrating artificial intelligence and machine learning to be able to derive meaning from this big data that we have, what would those steps look like in your own words? You can unmute and proceed. Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, like I mentioned, if you data is the next oil, and if you tell me we have this data, and so it means it's very easy for us to have some insight from the data. So what data is supposed to do is for you to begin to analyze those data, you begin to train them to do what you think manually you were doing before. And that's where the whole machine learning, language comes into being. So is to segregate those data to answer to different specific reasons where you want those data to actually talk to you. One is getting those machine learning engineers, and I believe maybe the KRA have some. Of course, if you are having a lot of data like that, you have a lot of data for them to analyze. So it means I'm a taxpayer, I pay now, I pay tomorrow, and you can aggregate my purchasing culture with my banking app and see how my models work. And those are all the things that the team will be learning across the years. And I agree with Dorothy that can be now long term. Meaning taking time to learn about the taxpayer, taking time to learn about their behaviors, taking time to learn about those that are paying and those that are not paying. And so going to that realm of automation have to happen with these, preliminary baby steps. The fundamental beginning is actually getting that data. And I'm glad that you say we have data. I was thinking we don't have data. But if we do have data, that is actually the place for us to start with. So one is for you to begin to segment that data to speak to different insights that you want to see as a revenue house. And then, of course, begin to train the data to begin to see, look at liners, look at so many other things and begin to aggregate those performance as time goes on. So that if somebody evades tax, you also simply just know from the previous performance. And you see that happens even from our buying cultures on our apps, in different other things that understands that have those kind of behaviors and data pattern that we've already built into it. So I would say one, again, I'm going back to training. So training the many machine learning engineers. Of course, the artificial intelligence will become later based on the kind of algorithm that you want to see come out of the data you have. to begin to speak to decision making, to begin to speak to enforcement, to begin also to speak to people paying their taxes promptly, because again, you will not be left with, enforcing tax payment to individual, to companies. Now the system itself knows that it is time of the year that this should pay, and it can begin to talk to you based on your business to say, hey, you're supposed to pay this XYZ tax by our estimation and all that. So that is the realm we want to go to. And I think at the first time is begin to train people to understand data mining, for example, from the pool of data that you have, moving to the machine learning engineers to work with the algorithm based on what data point you want to see answer, what kind of insight do you really want to see. And of course, those are the things data analysts within the system will begin to configure the system to speak to. As data are added every day, and of course, the system learns. And then, of course, you now move to that realm of perfection where you actually exactly know what is happening within your system. So I give an example. We're engaged with a company that we're working to understand how property tax can be gotten. And so what we're doing currently is using geospatial maps to understand each property, where the locations are. Is there development happening within that place? How is this place looking last week? Is something happening this week that is different from the geospatial data that is gotten, because it's reporting every time? And each of the existing businesses you know the name of the businesses in that place, you know the number of businesses happening in that premise, if it's a plaza, whatever it is. And so all those issues are built into the data set, and you know exactly from the touch of button, for example, in your state, in your county, in your sub-region, you know people that are meant to pay tax, and these are completely driven by data. So I think those are the ways to go. It looks like a long journey, but again, if we have data, I think we have done some chunk of movement to get in there. Doctor.
Thank you very much, Deji. I'll come back to you shortly, and the question that I'll be asking you to address, Deji, is how do you map cryptocurrency flows and accounts? But before that, we now have close to 500 participants in this particular webinar, and this is the 9th KESRA Economic Dialogue. And through this dialogue, we bring together various, top level panelists who can then be able to come together and have this conversation and disseminate information, not just within our African continent, but outside the continent and across industry. So Deji, again, allow us to pick from your investigative mind and your investigative training. You can invoice us later. So how do we map cryptocurrency flows and accounts for purposes of taxation? Deji? Deji, can you hear me?
I don't think he's hearing you.
Okay, we will be coming
The network
back.
is breaking. I don't know if it's from my side or from you, Doctor.
Can you hear me now?
Hear.
Can you hear me now? Deji, can you hear me now?
I don't know if somebody can take the question. Doctor, you're breaking from my side, so I don't know if it's me. I don't know if another person can confirm, or maybe it's my network.
Okay, I think we will come back to you shortly. We'll type the question on the chat area for you to be able to have a look at that. But Professor Bitangendemo, you've been you heavily involved with small enterprises. You are professor of entrepreneurship, and you did mention that one of the things that we need to do is ensure that we establish proper view of that particular sector. Would you give some pointers on how African tax administrations can do that?
Yes, it is an issue that we must do, because if we make them more productive, we grow the economy faster. I usually say that we make assumptions that people can move out of poverty by themselves. But the current dispensation with data, with AI, it is not true. We could help. I'll give you a basic example. We used to do very well when we used to have extension officers to help the farmers understand the kind of fertilizer they use, how they grow things. That was data that was given them to be more productive. Right now, for us to help micro, small enterprises to succeed, we need to deploy a lot of young people to teach them how to leverage data to be able to make more money and be more useful to the economy. What I mean here is that you find a very basic example that I'm selling bananas here today, and I'm the only person selling those bananas. I could put my profits to be 100%. But if 3 of us came together, one would reduce the price. And the more people who come into one central place, they kill themselves because the margins become smaller with the more suppliers you have. We don't need to have that. The idea is that once you find you are squeezed by many other players on the same product, you are supposed to do an innovation. This is what somebody called Schumpeter said. So I would move from making bananas, I make a banana smoothie. So, and then others would see, they would make the banana smoothie because the profits are higher. And I move from there and make banana bread, meaning then I am alone and then I make more money. This is what grows the economy, but it needs someone to assist the farmers that you ought not to be in the same space. This is what I was talking about, that we help to build the value chains where everybody gets significant amount of money, which can help them come out of poverty. We need now to urge governments to be able to help these MSMEs. COVID helped us to do it. And how did we do it? We used to have some few women come to the university. We wanted to see how they can leverage technology. And the COVID came. And then they said, now you help us. So what we did was to get them smartphones. They take their supplies, pictures, and send them to their customers. And when the customers ordered, they would ask motorbike riders to drop the supplies to the customer. Within 2 days, we had created an online business, which most of the women were shocked that this could work. Many of them never came back to the areas they used to stay for the whole day to sell. Now they began to sell because they had been enabled by technology to do that. Now, these people, because they must use mobile apps, these are the people who are visible to tax. And then they are also making money because they are in a space where they can't squeeze most of themselves out of business. So we need to make more effort to go into the small enterprises. As I told you, there is a company called TAPI, which is digitizing MSMEs. And by digitizing them and showing them value out of that, helping them to know which areas they can invest to make the most, they are helping the people, helping the government to get more taxes, and also helping the economy to expand. So it is not something that we say, you are on your own, go decide on what to do. Data can help us to deal with SDG number 1, which is poverty reduction. But the strategies we are using are wrong. And once you resolve that, you have resolved the entire economy. I don't know whether I explained it properly.
Thank you. Yes, you did. And thank you, Prof. I don't know, Deji, are you back with us?
I think I'm back.
Fantastic.
Okay.
The question was, so how should tax agencies identify and map out crypto accounts and flows for purposes of taxation?
Doctor, that's $1 million question. I wish them straight away. So again, like I said, the blockchain itself, by the inherent nature, like Ambassador had mentioned, is an open system and inherently transparent. Traceability of any kind of thing from supply chain to individual users to what you buy with it is open on the system and it's open on the technology itself. So where I think the challenge comes is to actually put personal identifiable information about who is doing what on that blockchain. That is now the critical part. And so if you don't identify the people, then how do you tax them? Who do you know you're taxing? And I think that is where the whole thing is coming to. So it's still the tools, I would say the processes would be one, get everyone within the tax authority, understand new money, and there's a new money in town, and how to tax the new money and the kind of taxes that can be applicable to the new money based on this kind of use should be the first layer. And then the second layer, again, good enough. There are tools on the market today that can help you aggregate all the things that I mentioned earlier about how much is taxable revenue that has flowed into your country, how much actually on-chain transaction has anything to do with your country, what are kind of things that people are using the transaction to do, what is the disperse rate, how are the people located within your country, for example, where are the key activities coming from? Is it in country, is it out country? Who are the counterparties that your country interact with digital assets? Those are all questions that can be answered really by the tax authority. So that would say would be the second layer. After complete training, understanding what is blockchain, what is cryptocurrency, how does it work, what are the natures, what are the difference with privacy coin, those that are not even visible to even people that are investigating. What if the tax people want to evade tax and the criminals use those ones to actually transact? What are the indicators to look out for? Those are the nitty-gritty of what I think KESRA can do, for example, in Kenya. And so when you do that across the tax official and tax administrators, now they understand. So after understanding it, now they have a tool. I was just talking to the Interpol before I left, so it's less of the tool. So the Interpol, for example, I call my partner and I say, look, I'm going to be taking Interpol tomorrow. Can you just help us do some demo on chain analysis reactor investigative tools so that they can see how this is going? And they told me, oh, forget about this African Interpol, that they're talking to me from New York. The international Interpol has bought 10 licenses and they have distributed to Kenya, to Rwanda, to Nigeria, to all those places. And they are telling me I can bet you only 3 countries have touched it for the past 3 years. Others simply do not even go to the tool. And this is a tool that can show them as much of this thing that I was telling us about. So I think it has to do less of the tool now. That's why I started from education. So people have to understand. So now I was talking to them. I say, who? Now I wanted to do something, but this is the management, this is the key official. And I understand from New York that this tool has been bought and is given to you guys. Who is in charge? Because this is the management of Interpol. So if it's not here, you know who, where, who is the person. And true, they pointed to someone and they say he's the one. And that guy has not been using it. And his complaint was that, yes, they sent the tool in, but we've not been trained. So it means education was supposed to be the first before even any tool. So after educating them, when you give them this tool, I can tell you, it was like a magic. So I did it with the partners, and we're showing the tax authority how much flow came to this country, how much is the revenue, who are the people. And we even did a simulation where we can find individuals holding above $1 million in their wallets and where they are residing. So we can see the IP address, we can see the internet service providers they are using. You can see a lot of things, so the tax authority can ask questions from the standpoint of understanding and knowledge. So I think those are the things in my view. And there's something that I think we did in Nigeria. We call it now the National Blockchain Policy Framework. So it's a policy that aggregates every ministry and department of the government to say, where do we want to see ourselves? So they're starting at the fundamental bedrock at the national policy on where they want to go to. And then we can begin to branch at different use cases that affect different ministries, for example. And then based on that knowledge level, you can begin to use tools. But I can tell you there are tools to answer all the questions that most of the revenue authorities actually have. And again, do not forget also EOCD, the crypto asset reporting framework that has, internal different reporting. So even if your citizen is doing something in another country, and they can just discuss that within that CAF framework to make sure they share data between themselves. So I think it's for me, those are supposed to be the processes every tax authority should follow.
Can I?
Thank you. Yes, Professor.
Yes.
Proceed.
Yes, I like what Adeji has said. What we must do is to begin to have a regulatory framework, even if it's a sandbox. That way you begin to demystify and get more people to understand. Number two is that we must shift to central bank digital CBDCs. Yeah? The reason why of going into CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, even if someone was hiding resources, and eventually, if it's a debt goes to get a little to bring it to the normal system, then you begin to get them very easily. But right now, because of fear, and even the US, the failure of FTX was simply because there was no regulator. But we need to allow space for policy regulation and begin to study to be able to understand. Kenya, Nigeria, anybody using mobile platform actually is doing blockchain. I mean, doing digital currencies, because there is you don't have the cash that moves. You have actually been doing. M-Pesa is a classic example of a digital currency, because we don't shift the resources. It's just a small tweak, and we begin to understand the sources. Eventually, even now, as we talk about cash, we have dark web. And the way they end up catching these people is by just one of them making the mistake. And one would make mistake because they need the normal currencies to be able to trade. This is what I think can help even the tax people to understand.
Thank you very much. Dorothy, there's a question here, and I'm now looking at the questions that are coming from the about 500 people who are listening and watching us from different parts of the world. And Dorothy, I'll ask you two questions. You can combine them as you respond. First of all, there is a question that we just received here. How can countries implement government-wide tech strategies to support taxation? And is artificial intelligence and machine learning, are these two technologies a risk to jobs? I think someone is worried that they might lose their job because of technology. Please proceed, Dorothy.
Okay, I'll start with the last one, because the first one is, I think, like Deji said, it's $1 million. But I will do my best to respond to that one. So for the first one, I think if one was to look at it, it is, I would not say it's a threat. Change is coming. And I think it means we as people have to accept that the skill set we need is different. I mean, I'm a lawyer in finance. I can assure you there are days I wake up and my job feels a lot like I am a data analyst. But that's because of the value of the data. That's what it does. My life is a lot easier because I have all this data that flows through me. I can come up with a solution and a strategy because of what it avails me. It does mean my job has changed. And I think most of us on this call are tax specialists, tax agents, tax officials. So yes, your job is changing. I think we have to agree. I would say it does not threaten. It asks us to reskill, upskill, and learn. So, because you no longer need people at branch offices, tax authorities' offices to receive paper. If you recall the old age where one would need to file heaps and heaps of documents and line up when it's year end to file your income tax return and make sure that you have a receipt so that you could go back to the office so that you could prove you've paid your taxes. That is gone. So your skill set has to change. But that doesn't mean you've lost a job. It is up to the tax authorities to reskill and upskill because we have to grow our economies. We have to move up the value chain, like Ambassador has said. As Africa, we have to do that. So KESRA is doing its part, and I think it's doing it for the whole of Africa, where it's helping us to upskill and understand that and get the skill set that we need in order to ensure that the tax authority is able to harness this AI machine learning outputs that's going to come. And the same question was asked, and it's a very important question because when the Togo authority was rolling out their e-tax program, the greatest pushback they had internally was from their employees, simply because of that question. I'm going to lose my job. The fear that if this comes in, then I'm going to lose my job. So, but simply by training, like they just say, education, they were able to at least cross that hurdle. But it was a significant hurdle at the onset. So it's a good question, and it is warranted. But I think one needs to put aside the fear and rather push for your organizations to change their human resource training program, to change the strategy to ensure that there is no loss of job, but rather reskilling their employees. And I think that's what many of us in the corporate sector are trying to do. I hope I've answered that question.
Yes. And as you go to the next question, Professor, please look at the chat and look at that question that touches on the Dutch tax authority. Prepare to respond to that one. Please proceed, Dorothy.
So the question is, how can countries implement government-wide tax strategies to support taxation? I think I just want to caveat that the challenge we have in Africa is that a tax strategy is long-term. It's not a 2-year strategy at a government and a policy level. It's not 2-3 years. An ambassador will talk to it. When he was at the Ministry of ICT in Kenya, he set up strategies. The question for him is, are those strategies still in place? Did he see the fruition of those strategies? So we do need a level of stability for a government to be able to, first of all, define those strategies. Because we need to know, and Deji alluded to it when Nigeria is asking, you need to ask yourself, where do we see ourselves in terms of blockchain? I would say the government first needs to define what it sees itself as. Does it see itself, the country becoming a service sector-driven industry? Does a tech strategy rather need to speak to its industries, its sector? Are you extractive resources driven? Then in that case, your tech strategy needs to address the tax gap that comes in that sector. So first port of call is to have a policy long-term that doesn't change regardless of which government comes in. There is financing that needs to be given to that tech strategy so that one creates institutes that regardless of what happens. Those institutes remain funded and keep working to those policies, which perhaps the citizens all agree this is what works. So it is a very tricky question. But I think, Ambassador, frankly, you may be better placed to address this, because we've seen tech strategies come and go. We've seen great initiatives come and go. And that is, to me, that is the biggest challenge, because once a government has a strategy and rolling it out and working in concert, that means it has to have stability and a champion, like Togo's digital transformation policy. It needs, and it cannot be KESRA, a tax authority, being that champion. It has to be someone at the policy making level.
And I remember, before I go to Professor Ndemo, I remember Professor, I think it must have been 2009 or 2010, trying to explain to the country how internet was coming by sea, and people wondering whether those cables will not be eaten by sharks, and and why are we spending money in all this, and see where we are now. Professor, please proceed.
Yes, I think you asked me the question on the Dutch, and they put them properly, and the other question was?
So basically, you can go ahead. Let me contextualize the question from Norbert Mutinda.
Okay.
He says in March 2022, the Dutch tax authority
Yes,
ruined
I've seen that
thousands
one.
of lives. Yeah,
Mm.
I'm reading it is for everyone else. So in March 2022, the Dutch tax authority ruined thousands of lives after using an algorithm to spot suspected benefits fraud. How reliable is AI and machine learning in ensuring tax operations are executed objectively?
Yes, but if you are from the tax side, the reason why they were implementing that is because there were too many cheats, and it is human beings who are still doing it, and then this executes automatically. Of course, it ruined people who are honest, but who fit the profile of the cheats. We were discussing an issue here where people get benefits for housing, and they find it very difficult to go get a job, even when they have more jobs than human beings. And then they would cheat, they would say another thing. So sometimes it's good to shake it up. But of course, this one, it messed up people who are honest in their declaration, I think, about child benefits. It was caught, they got it. You saw what happened in the UK with the postal systems. People went to jail, but the systems is someone who manipulated the system. So that's why I use the word ethics. Was it ethically done? I mean, followed the normal procedures. Of course, mistakes usually happen. Now, if you talk about the Dutch, a very small country, there are billions of people who live in China, 1 point something billion, but they use these systems on a regular basis to catch the cheats. So let's not take isolated cases. Do you call it, you throw away the baby with bath water? It will happen. It would happen. There are several areas where people have developed systems that are not working according to what they are expected to do.
Deji, you're still with us, and we are almost coming to the close of this. Deji, you're there with us?
Yes, I'm here. So like Dorothy was speaking about people getting scared of their jobs being replaced. Is a legitimate fear. I remember some couple of months back, I was speaking to a group of chartered accountants, and for a training that was organized by them. And one of the questions that came was that, don't you think, and the training is just how artificial intelligence is changing the practice of accounting and taxation. And in that class, I clearly just used ChatGPT to do the financials. And in that class, I used ChatGPT to compute taxation following a particular rule. And they saw in a click of button, that is done. And so at the end, the question and answer was, don't you think this artificial intelligence thing will replace us? And I told them it will replace those that refuse to update. And it's simple. So if you don't update to make your job more efficient, like Dorothy was saying, when of course things were digitized, her job became more easier, then you can upskill to make your job more efficient, faster, and make it better. So you possibly be taking the job from the traditionalists that need paper, that need to do your financials, that need to do your trial balance on paper, to now to you that you are very efficient with your system. So the people that will lose their jobs are actually people that refuse to use the emerging technology to better their jobs. So it means if there's an AI, then you should use AI to better your job. And of course, I should also, can you draft me a response to tax authority telling them that I've actually paid my taxes properly and XYZ are the reason why they did their computation, and in second, ChatGPT return exactly what should go to the tax authority. And I said, this is a letter you can write on behalf of your client, to the tax authority. And so for you, if you have a secretary now, that is not now writing letter the traditional way, but I can use that regenerative artificial intelligence to do your comprehensive letter. You're more efficient, you're up to date, so you won't replace that secretary, but you replace that one that's sitting, that's writing and coming back with red biros and errors and grammar and everything. You replace that. So that is why this whole thing is going to affect only those that refuse to upskill, and that is why they advise to KESRA to begin to upskill the staffs, begin to make them know how this is emerging, begin to see how you can use generative AI in your computation, in your writing to your clients, and so many other things. It's just going to complement and make your work easier than just you getting scared of losing it.
I think you should remember that in the 80s, President Moi banned, actually we still have that circular in place. He banned computers in offices, in government offices, because the secretaries would lose jobs. But today you still go and find there are 2-3 secretaries with those computers. They are doing much more, being more productive. The same is happening today. If you saw the news, President Biden in the US went to launch something Microsoft is putting up in Wisconsin, an AI park to employ 100,000 people. They don't have those people. Eventually, they would probably come to Africa and get a few people to go and do those kinds of jobs. What we see in the back offices in Nairobi, there are a lot of jobs which are done at night. Some are working from home. So the people who go around saying that we are going to lose money, even before, my evangelism now is to be able to do content in African languages, because we can now have Igbo or Kikuyu or any other language translatable to English and back, and telling stories from African folklore to everything. The things that are to come are actually much more. We have not even scratched the surface. We are again scaring people around for nothing, and nobody has that knowledge to be able to tell people that jobs are going to go. So we need to, yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Now, we have people who have been listening and watching us very silently, and they have been consuming every word that we've been saying, because they are the users, and they are actually the reason that we are all having this conversation. And now I want to introduce two surprise appearances. We have the Commissioner for Customs in Kenya and the Commissioner for Domestic Taxes in Kenya. And I'll just ask them to quickly, just tell us what their perspective on this conversation is. Commissioner Lilian, Dr. Lilian Nyawanda, Commissioner for Customs, please go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Mugambi. Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you, Deji. Thank you, everyone. It's been a very insightful engagement. I've just been listening in, and I think what's gone through my mind is I think as Ambassador said, we've just scratched the surface. There's so much more ahead of us, and what we need to do is then to keep up with the times, to go ahead, because as revenue collectors for customs, for example, we're looking at sophisticated ways of concealment, undervaluation, misdeclarations. There are all sorts of new things. We keep seeing new items every day, sophisticated items, some we've not seen. I remember 2 years ago, we were grappling with the issues of vape and, the e-cigarettes. Now we're at another level with other different things. So it's been very insightful. I think for us, from a customs perspective, the challenge is to be able to go ahead and be very, curious of what's ahead, think through, compare notes with our different partner states under WCO framework. There's a lot to learn from our member states, our different countries, and just to know other customs administrations, what they are going through, what are they seeing, what's ahead of us. Is it in Europe? Is it in Asia? I think there's so much for us to do, looking at blockchain, looking at machine learning. How can we leverage on that? How do we ensure that our systems are up to date so that we're not relying on the traditional ways of physical verification and enforcement? So there's so much more to be done, but I like the conversation. I think it's just the beginning, Dr. Mugambi. So looking forward to much more of this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Lillian. Commissioner Rispa, Commissioner Domestic Taxes, Kenya. Commissioner Rispa, you're there? Commissioner is here.
Thank you. Sorry, I think my lighting is a bit terrible. Can I be seen?
Yes, we can see you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Dr. Mugambi, and our panelists for today. Indeed, a very insightful conversation. And at every step, I kept saying, nice one, how can I apply that? Nice one, how can I apply that? And you see, looking at one question that was asked earlier, that the direction that we are taking, does it mean, will it lead to loss of jobs? And for me, I would start by saying that the only constant thing in life is change. Looking back to where KRA was around 2013, 2014, back then I was actually a tax practitioner. And there was this thing of you have to file the taxpayer's return and you must make it past the doors of the Times Tower before 5 p.m. And so, and you see, a taxpayer, or rather a client at the time, has brought you a return and has brought it at 4 p.m., but expects you to somehow pull out your broom and fly all the way to Times Tower and make through the doors before 5 p.m. And so what we would do is ensure that one of the clerks of the firm stays inside Times Tower. So don't leave. And you'd have to talk nicely to the security guard and tell him, just pass this on to that guy, pass it on. So the guy would keep coming to the door and filing, and you tell him, don't come out of there until we give you green light that we are down and you can come out. And that coming out could be at 6, could be at 6:30. Where are we today? You can file on the 1st of January, you can file on the 30th, you can file at 8 a.m., you can file at 2 a.m. So that is what really technology has done for us. And as such, then, with that change, we have to embrace it. Now, again, the issue of AI, I really like the conversation around probable cause. Indeed, looking forward to a point where just by looking at technology, it tells me a story. Because the challenge that we tend to have more often than not is that you have bits and pieces of data everywhere, but they're not telling you anything. And as such, then, we probably as tax administrators, you tend probably to ask the taxpayer the same question over and over. You'd ask the information the same information over and over, yet from where we sit, and sometimes you end up groping in the dark, and it could easily become a hit and miss. Yeah, let me just probably chance I throw somewhere, and when people scatter, I know there's a problem. But with then AI and even the aspect of probable cause, then as the ambassador said, you're bringing in a 20 million guzzler, a vehicle. But then when I look at your return, you're filing nil return. Surely I should be worried, because it's not just about how many people have filed, but the quality of the filing. Borrowing again from what we have had here on the call and what other countries are doing, I did engage our colleagues from Finland, and I think some others from Sweden. And interesting enough, interesting and sad at the same time, is that when I asked the question of data, how do you get data? So that then the data speaks and the data makes the work more efficient, both for ourselves and for the taxpayer. What do you do? And interesting enough, they could not even tell, for them, it's not even an issue. Getting data is not a problem because they have it. So you're left wondering, so how did you get there? Where have I been? And of course, looking at where we are in the community, very litigious. The Data Protection Act, yes, comes in to guide us and to help, in all honesty. But then I think also, Dorothy, you made reference to what SARS are doing, because whereas they have the Data Protection Act, in the Act, when you're talking about public good, when you're going for taxes, there are certain exemptions that then allow you to access this data for tax mobilization purposes, and strictly so. But here then, again, with that bit of AI integration, data accessibility, visibility, you see all that, it's almost like you're chasing your tail. Again, the challenge around dependencies, because then when we come together, be it different government agencies, be it different institutions, it becomes second nature. And when you have this data, I don't even have to struggle and stress the taxpayer saying, give me this and give me the other, because I have the information. Mine is to tell me, is to say, through use of AI and the applicable tools, data that I have around about your PIN, your identification number, is telling me this. So, and give you a right of reply, a right of refusal, a right to challenge me, etc., etc. But having said that, I think a very insightful conversation, a lot to learn, and we look forward to similar engagements in the future as we look for that new money, as Deji put it, that new money, and it's all about tax-based expansion. Thank you very much, and back to you.
Can I say one thing?
Sure.
Yes, Professor,
Yes,
in
yes,
1 minute.
Yes. Recently, when you introduced e-teams, we tried to do it from here. Eventually, it worked. But I am hoping one day I would go online and a chatbot tells me what I owe. And a chatbot tells me your employer remittances have come. We have to come physically.
We're moving away from that. We are increasingly moving away from that. And I'll tell you, with the data protection and the resistance and the litigation and the what, so you make 4 steps forward and 10 backwards. So
no, that's your data actually. That's your data, because the employer sends the remit. It is actually your data, which I have put the code in. I need to get it and then finish. Or if I am getting a vehicle home, I should work out everything from here and even pay from here, not carry any money, and come through.
Correct.
Yes, Professor. So I know Dorothy wants to say something. Ladies and gentlemen, every time we do the KESRA Economic Dialogues, the hardest part is to close it.
Okay.
And it's very hard to put a hard stop. But let's listen to Dorothy, and then I'll allow the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of you 1 minute each to just give a closing sentiment, and then we can call it a day. This is not the end. This is only the beginning, and Commissioner Lillian said it. We have a lot of these conversations coming up in various shapes and forms through the KESRA Economic Dialogue, through our annual conferences organized by the KRA fraternity. And so we will be having a lot of these conversations. And this is a topic that we are not going to run away from. Dorothy, to you in 1 minute. 1 minute, please.
I'll make this my 1 minute and closing minute. Then
Absolutely. Thank you.
So I just needed to share something with Ambassador and Commissioner Risper, because the question you're asking about data privacy and protection, how do you maneuver the pushback that you're getting from taxpayers? I think that's really the issue. So the India Tax Department actually tried to roll out blockchain and piloted it. And their insight to all tax authorities who wanted to do it is that you must have a very clear value proposition that you sell to your stakeholders, especially your taxpayers. And they did that. So I would say, to address the pushback, what is your value proposition? SARS value proposition was very clear. So I really don't care. They can look into my bank account as much as they want, because the simplicity of my life, because of SARS and what they've done, as long as you're just employed, it's a return that's filed for you. All you have to do is tick the box and say, I'm good with that number. So we're almost at the chatbots, Ambassador, that gives me a number. In this case, I have to log in. So the question is really a challenge for rather the tax authorities and the government and the policy advisors. What's your value proposition, and have you sold it to your stakeholders? Thank you for inviting me. I'm done. 1 minute.
Thank you very much, Dorothy. And we are not seeing the last of you. We will definitely be bringing you back to have these conversations at KRA. And basically, I can talk for all the other tax administrations in Africa as far as this context of this conversation is concerned. We don't run away from conversations. We actually want to listen to everything that can be said, so that then we see how we can make it, better. Deji, your 1 minute, please.
Yeah, so my 1 minute is, I think we're on track, and I think in this room I'm motivated that we are not in the days Prof mentioned where they say ban computers. With the authorities here, they are in tandem, and it's just a normal one. And I agree with Doctor. The world we're living in now is that there's a lot of innovation, like the commissioner mentioned, and even at customs. I was talking with our customs, and they were asking me the last time I was traveling out to say, how much are you carrying dollars? I said, don't ask that again, because the world has moved. So I carry 2 billion in my crypto wallet. How do you know? And I go to do terror financing, money laundering with that. I want you to upskill, please, and know how you can get some intel. If you're asking me, are you carrying up to $10,000? Let me count your dollars. It's outdated, and I think the young people have moved to another realm, and I think that's what the commissioner is talking about. I remember a few years back when I was working with one of the World Bank project early in the 90s. They will tell you, do not touch the internet. You know, remember that time we have what we call the intranet. You can only work within the internet in your office, and you dare not touch. If you do, you can be queried, you can be sacked. They see it as a very dangerous, exposing the company to the internet. Now all of us, now we have a meeting on the internet and all that. And that is exactly what also we are currently doing with digital currency and cryptocurrency. The central banks in the world, and I'm happy I'm going to be on a panel at Digital Money Summit in London in, I think, 2 days away, on 15 and 16. And those are the debates that are happening. You know, where the government say, oh, we don't want cryptocurrency, we are going to do our own CBDC, central bank digital currency. So we're back to that wall of do not touch the general internet. Just use the intranet. So because the central bank digital currencies are local to central banks alone, and all the 2.4 million cryptocurrencies are staying in a different rail of the public blockchain. And for the tax authority to be able to tax those, they have to be a bridge where they talk to themselves so they can get the necessary data. So I want to say education, again, I'm back, and I'm glad I'm talking in a KESRA forum. Education, and that's what we have to continue to do across Africa. And of course, we are very much open to see how much we can support these enlightenment processes.
Thank you very much, Deji. Much appreciated. Professor Ndemo,
Me
Ambassador.
is to thank you and the good news that you have given here, that our tax authorities are improving. It is for us, actually, for our economy to move. I think we are at where? Are we still below 30% in terms of, I think we need to be where every other country is, and that's by everybody paying and not just a few people. And anytime you need us to talk or come here to see what they are doing, they collect a lot of money from all over the place, which helps to reduce the individual tax. And those are the areas we need to explore much later. To just, even if you came as a group, because you are the only one who comes here, you bring everybody to the World Customs Union, just ask the question, what are the sources, what are the percentages? You will find the areas which we have not exploited, especially areas of mistakes where we can take advantage. Thank you. I take your word that next year I would be sending to know where my things are.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency Ambassador Professor Ndemo. Now to my colleagues, the two commissioners, Commissioner Lillian.
Thank you, Dr. Mugambi. Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you, Dorothy and Deji. I would just say I've learned a lot, but in conclusion, I would say technology is advancing and the challenge is for us to be ahead of the game. But for us to be able to, to keep up to speed, then it requires adaptability, flexibility, and willingness to learn. We learn every day. So I think, and it's partnering with other revenue agencies and even our taxpayers, getting feedback and seeing opportunities where they are. So I think for us, technology is good, but my concluding remarks is let's make technology work for us. Thank you.
Absolutely. Finally, Commissioner Rispa.
Thank you again, Dr. Mugambi, and to all the panelists and my colleagues. I would start from where I said earlier that the only constant thing in life is change. It is the only constant. And, when they talk about if you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail, right? So for us, I think a challenge even for us tax administrators, and going back to the earlier point of value proposition, even as we are looking for what to collect from you, from taxpayers, our biggest challenge remains to convince them what's in it for them. So contracts are no longer, for example, contracts are no longer being manually prepared. Things have moved on. So again, critical to reskill, upskill, and of course, this is coupled with a tax policy that speaks to the current times, and of course, agile laws that move with the times. So we continue to learn, we continue to take feedback. Sometimes, yes, we look very rigid, but again, moving with the times and looking forward to what then the future holds as far as technology is concerned. Thank you so much, and back to you.
Thank you very much to you, Commissioner Rispa Simiyu, Commissioner Lillian Nyawanda. I apologize for ambushing you, but it was important for us to see your faces. And ladies and gentlemen, these two commissioners combined mobilize over $16-17 billion for this country, and they're the reason that this country actually runs. So I think we need to clap for them. I shouldn't be doing this for my colleagues, but it is true. These are facts. Ambassador Professor Bitange Ndemo, again coming to us from Brussels in Belgium. Dorothy Kangoro, founder and managing director at Afrilaw Johannesburg, and group tax manager at Mukuru. And of course, Adedeji Awonibi, co-founder Convexity Nigeria. We will definitely be coming back to you in due course because this has been absolutely amazing. It's interesting. It's really interesting that we have done 2 hours. We didn't even realize that 2 hours are over. And I mean, it feels like we should go on and on and on, but we are going to create other opportunities. This has been the 9th series of the KESRA Economic Dialogue. Thank you very much. My name is Mugambi Mwirigi, Commissioner in charge of the Kenya School of Revenue Administration. Thank you very much to you all. Back to you, Wanjiko Karanja.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. I think that was a fantastic economic dialogue. Thank you, everybody, for logging in. Thank you, all our panelists. I think it surpassed all expectations. We are really, really glad that you participated in this economic dialogue. From me and the team behind the scenes, we just want to say we're really grateful. And for all the people who joined in, asanteni sana. And we cannot wait to cook something up and have another economic dialogue, the 10th economic dialogue, which hopefully will build on this one and be even greater. Now, again, it would be amiss of me as a marketer to leave without trying to plug something. So I just wanted to say, in this cold weather, in case you would like a KESRA hoodie, we do have some wonderful KESRA hoodies for sale. So if you are cold and you are looking for something to keep you warm, get to our website at www.kesra.ac.ke and grab yourself a hoodie or a mug. So thank you, everybody, for attending. Thank you, everybody behind the scenes. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Commissioner Rispa and Commissioner Nawanda and all the panelists, Ambassador Dorothy and Deji, asanteni sana. Thank you, everybody, and you can leave at your pleasure. Thank you.
Mugambi, we will talk. Eh? I'll call you.
Prof. Yes, we will talk. We'll definitely talk. And I'll be looking out for Deji and Dorothy also.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
It was nice. Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Dorothy. And when you're around, please come over for a cup of tea.
Definitely. I need some chai. Thanks.
Thank you very much and have a good evening.
Yes, bye.